Hello, and a warm welcome to Reddit Echo.
There are places in this world where the line between superstition and reality is paper thin, where ancient warnings are whispered on the wind, and to ignore them is to invite a darkness that defies all rational explanation. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a story about the consequences of ambition clashing with the unknown. A tragedy written not in ink, but in blood, in a remote corner of the globe my family should never have ventured into. My grandfather was a titan of industry. His company dealt in timber and mining, and his ambition had no borders. In the pursuit of a new venture, he identified a location in a remote part of a developing nation, a place so isolated it was barely on a map. To establish a foothold, he needed a local office. And that's when they found it, a house. It was large, structurally sound, and the price was unbelievably, suspiciously cheap. Even for that part of the world, it was a steal. But the local villagers, the people who knew the land and its history, they came with warnings. Their words, translated by nervous aides, were simple and dire. The house was cursed, haunted by a malevolent presence. They said that everyone who had ever lived within those walls had died, violently. There was a history of madness, of suicide, of inexplicable accidents. They pleaded with my grandfather's representatives to look elsewhere, to not tempt the fate that lingered in that soil. My grandfather, a man of steel, profit, and Western rationality, dismissed it all. To him, it was primitive superstition, the kind of backward nonsense that stood in the way of progress and profit. He saw a bargain, and he took it. The decision was made. The house was purchased. The plan was straightforward. A trusted manager, let's call him Thomas, was chosen to spearhead the operation. He would move in with his family, his wife, and their 3 young children. The lower floor would serve as the company office. The top floor would be their living quarters. It was meant to be a fresh start, an adventure. Photographs from before they left show a happy family, full of hope, completely unaware of the shadow they were walking into. For the first few weeks, the reports were positive. Setup was progressing. Then the communication began to falter. Brief messages became shorter, then ceased altogether. At first, my grandfather wasn't overly concerned. This was a remote area. Power outages and failed communication lines were par for the course. But as days turned into a week and then 2, a low hum of anxiety began in the corporate headquarters. A man like Thomas didn't just go silent. Finally, my grandfather contacted the local authorities, a small, underfunded police outpost miles away, and paid them to send a unit to check on the family. What they found defies comprehension. The police, hardened men who had likely seen their share of poverty and violence, were reportedly shaken to their core. They found the family dead. All of them. The official story, pieced together from fragmented and horrified reports, was that Thomas had succumbed to a sudden, violent psychosis. He had murdered his wife. He had murdered his 3 children. And then he had turned the weapon on himself. The weapon wasn't a gun. It was a machete. Let that word hang in the air for a moment. A machete. The imagery this conjures is not clean, not clinical. It is brutal, visceral, and intimate. The reports suggested it wasn't a single fatal blow for any of them. It was an act of frenzied, overwhelming violence. And most horrifying of all, the investigation concluded that Thomas, after killing his family, had then used that same blade on himself with a force and determination that seemed superhuman. He hadn't just cut his wrists, he had hacked himself to death. The descriptions of the scene that trickled back to us were so grotesque, they seemed like exaggerations born of terror. They said the room, the master bedroom, was a charnel house, that the walls, the floor, and even the ceiling were covered in a fine arterial spray of blood. The phrase that has haunted me since the day I heard it was the magic machete. The local officers and villagers insisted that the blood on the ceiling could only have gotten there because the spirits had thrown the bodies around the room like rag dolls. When I, trying to cling to sanity, suggested it was simply the high pressure of a severed artery, I was met with stares that were not just dismissive, but pitying, as if I was the one who didn't understand the true nature of the world. But the detail that chills me the most, the one that even my rational mind struggles to explain, was the barricade. The door to the bedroom had been blocked from the inside. Not with a chair or a dresser. It was blocked with the massive, heavy wooden bed frame itself, the kind of antique, solid teak bed that would normally require 3 or 4 strong men to move. And on that bed, according to the reports, were the bodies of his wife and children. The locals saw this as the ultimate proof of possession, that a demonic force had granted Thomas unnatural strength to enact this horror and then seal himself in with his victims. My grandfather's company line, the one we were all supposed to believe, was that extreme psychosis can unlock hysterical strength in humans. But what kind of strength allows a man to move a monumental piece of furniture, commit these acts, and then continue to wield a machete against himself? The aftermath was a different kind of darkness. My grandfather, to protect the company and the venture, engaged in the grim pragmatism of such places. He paid substantial bribes to ensure the story was buried. The press was silenced, and the police report was classified. The cause of death for a family that had been hacked apart was officially listed as natural causes. In the middle of nowhere, money can buy even the most impossible of lies. But you can't bribe the human heart, and you can't silence a ghost story. When my grandfather tried to find a replacement, offering promotions and huge bonuses, no one would go. Even employees who hadn't heard the gory details knew the previous manager was dead. The whispers of the cursed house had spread through the company like a virus. One man was officially promoted into the role in order to go. He looked my grandfather in the eye and he quit on the spot. The office was never opened. The house still stands there, in that remote place, empty. A monument to a warning that was ignored, in a tragedy so violent that it forever blurred the lines between madness and the supernatural. My grandfather never spoke of it again. But sometimes I wonder what truly happened in that house. Was it the pressure of isolation that shattered a man's mind? Or did he, as the villagers warned, invite in something ancient and evil that had been waiting behind those walls all along?
Don't want to lose this channel and always be up to date with new videos? Then make sure to subscribe. The story continues, and it's only getting more interesting.